I'm John Miller, founding attorney with Rock Solid Law and Title. A very happy Thursday. Welcome to our webinar. This week, we're going to talk about scams, fraud, phishing, all of those sorts of things. And I truly believe that you will leave this session with some knowledge which will make you a consumer who is less likely to fall victim to one of these scams. I have been to multiple seminars, continuing education, and two briefings, at least two, from the FBI, who we're so fortunate to have here in with a location in Jacksonville, about cyber, basically fraud, phishing, scams, all that sort of thing. And, you know, buyer beware and user beware is the real watchword. I have she's not on the line, an elderly mother, and she will acknowledge that too. She's well into her 80s now. And she fell victim. Fortunately, they got a very small amount of money from her, but she got one of those messages on the screen that said that she had some sort of malware on her computer, and just click here. And she ended up on the telephone with somebody with a subcontinental accent, and actually ended up giving them a credit card, which we had to freeze. Fortunately, it was only a small charge. You know, that's what they do the first time, is they hit a small charge to find out if it works, and then they'll keep making them incrementally bigger until you stop them. At any rate, you know, the fact that I've made this a part of my profession and it happened to my own mother makes me feel like it could happen to anybody. I think the elder abuse is astounding, you know, as the greatest generation ages, and the baby boomers like myself are becoming more mature. We are the ones who the fraudsters aim at their scams. So the FBI briefings will terrify you about the black web and all that's out there. There are people, I'm going to guess in our country as well as other places in the world, who literally go to work every day and put in an 8-hour workday, and their job is to steal, I'm going to put it the way I believe it is, or scam or defraud money from you. And every one of us is a target, from a few dollars to tens of thousands. And but Rock Solid Law and Title has 3 areas of practice, as you know, and we're going to talk about each of them a little bit today. But the real estate title industry is an industry through which flows billions of dollars annually. And so that is a particular target. I have no shame in admitting that I have been targeted, that through advising my clients, we have stopped scammers. I have one wonderful client that said, "Oh, good, I will get to be a cautionary tale." As well as, and I'm going to take you through that scenario, as well as I've been a victim. I would say that over the span of time, our firm has been fortunate to have only lost tens of thousands of dollars. There are law firms that have had to shut down when they were scammed out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have, as a result, we had implemented procedures that would have avoided the one scam that got us. Unfortunately, we had then, many years ago, an employee who felt that she knew the participant and therefore didn't feel that she needed to follow our procedures, and went ahead and sent money to a scammer. By quick action, we were able to freeze some of it, but not all of it. So there are no stones being cast in this session. And if you're a homeowner, if you are a business owner, if you do business, or if you buy and sell real estate, or in some cases participate in estate planning, you will be targeted by one or more scams. And by the next 15, 20 minutes, you'll know what not to do so that they will not make you a victim. I don't think you're a victim until you actually fall for it, right? Until then, they've just taken another shot. And their whole thing is percentages, right? They do massive amounts of this kind of scamming, resulting in a very small percentage of people falling for it, but it's enough apparently to cause them to do this sort of criminal activity rather than put in an honest day's labor. So they must make more money than they believe they could make otherwise. So let's start out. In real estate and estate planning. I bring in estate planning because as a part of estate planning, we want to consider whether or not to put real property, inclusive of a homestead, into a trust. Pardon me. I was recently transferring title to some properties into my own trust and real property. And after that deed is recorded, of course, it becomes a public record. And here's the rub. For hundreds of years, public records, yeah, sure, nosy neighbors can go look at what's happening in if your will is probated, but we've never had this kind of scamming going on. So as soon as a deed is recorded in the public records, I suppose that these companies have software which gathers all the data for them. And I'm going to show you several documents today. And this is the first one. This actually, I've redacted it, but this is my own property. And once that deed was recorded, we received mail at home asking if we would like to send money. See how much it is on this one. It's typically not a huge amount of money. This case, it's $105. It's usually between $100 and $200 because it's it's the kind of check you don't think too hard about writing, right? This is to get me. And by the way, I will tell you, this is from Property Records, a company in Tallahassee, Florida, which is using a Tallahassee address so that you will think that they are an official arm of the Florida government, which they are not. And they wanted to provide me with a copy of my deed or other record of title, right? Oh, wow, well, I guess I need to pay $105 for my deed. No, you do not. You can make a copy of your deed because you're going to get the original back in the mail. Why didn't you leave the closing with the original? Because for the transfer to take place, I apologize, folks. For the transfer to take place, that deed has to be recorded in the public records. The very act that triggers this scammy company to send this mail, snail mail out to hundreds and hundreds of people. All right. So do not send that check in. In fact, if you get such a piece of mail, please give it to us so you can become a cautionary tale too. If it is something that might be beneficial to you, we'll be glad to advise you about it, right? We'll be glad to take a look at that for you and say, oh no, that's another one. There are multiple different companies in this business space. So you will get more than one of these kind of solicitations for you essentially to pay them $100 to get a photocopy of your deed. If you don't have a printer copier at home, if you're a client of the firm, and maybe even if you're not, drop by, we'll make a photocopy for you if you need it. If you really want to walk away from your closing with a copy of your deed, ask for it at closing. We give one to every party and to the realtors, okay? So likely by the time this mail comes, you already have a copy in that pile of papers that you haven't looked at since closing day. Small joke, but really true. The reason you don't have the original is it hasn't come back in the mail yet. And usually it's a couple weeks to a month. Why can't I tell you better than that? Because I don't control the clerk's office. The clerk is a wing of the government, and they act at their own speed. Typically, I will tell you they are efficient and do a great job, but sometimes there are delays. Okay, so don't pay for one of those. The next one I want to share with you is for you business owners, which could be as simple a business as owning an LLC for asset protection purposes into which you have transferred your real estate. So you now know one scam you're going to get when you transfer your real property into an LLC or other entity. You're going to get somebody wanting to make a photocopy for $105, right? That is not a good deal, friends. The next thing that's going to happen is that you're going to have us probably, or maybe do it yourself, form a business entity. In all likelihood, it may be an LLC, but there are good reasons for it to be a sub-S corporation. We might also consider a certain type of trust or land trust for you. And that's going to be recorded with the Secretary of State. Many people are familiar with their vendor called Sunbiz, and that's where you can view the Secretary of State records online, and you can do business with the Secretary of State there. A slight caution, again, buyer beware. A lot of people form their own LLCs and other entities, and some people get it right. I will tell you, without a doubt, what is it called? DIY, do it yourself, is cheaper. It's cheaper. It may be quicker, and it may be satisfactory. I will tell you, I've practiced law since 1984, and it costs a lot more for us to fix the errors that are made in that process than for us to do it right the first time. So up to you. Take your chances. If you get it right, good on you. If you need us to fix it, it's going to cost you more. Sort of like the plumber. You know, I don't do plumbing work. I can screw up the pipes really well. So it's way better for us to call somebody in and pay. I mean, plumbers' rates make us lawyers feel like paupers, right? And pay that person to do it right, rather than for me to screw it up worse. So when you file any entity, regardless of what it is, with the state of Florida, there will be an annual report required, and there's a fee associated with that. That fee is nothing more than a tax. It's not onerous. It's like less than $150. It's not a big deal, but you have to pay it every year to keep your entity going. And if you fail to do it by May 1st, it costs a lot more to do it later. They used to give us forgiveness. They cut that out years ago. And if you let it lapse, it can be prohibitively expensive to reinstate it. So you want to pay that every year. Well, these fraudulent, scammy companies have figured out that people really don't know the difference between an annual report. That's the report that comes with the required tax payment annually. I call it a tax. Any fee the government charges is a tax, right? So your entity has to pay that every year to stay in business. And then some organizations, like corporations, are required to do annual minutes, right? So these companies have figured out that if they send out a different kind of letter called, and I put this on my letterhead when I sent it out to clients years ago, an annual minutes requirement statement. There is a Florida statute, which is duly quoted, which requires you to do annual minutes. But again, you are not required to do them with one of these companies, which conveniently has an address in Tallahassee, Florida. This one's address is on Capitol Circle. Wow, the capital of Florida is Tallahassee. Oh, this must be a government entity. No, 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 my friends. This is a private person who wants your $125 to do your annual minutes, which may or may not be required, depending on what kind of entity you have. I would also suggest you send them to us. We do provide the service of creating annual minutes for those of our clients who need them. All right. So they're going to send a little form. It's real official, government-y looking, but it has the words, "We're not the government," somewhere on it. And it wants you to fill it in. And in this case, send $125. Note, it's $105, $125. They are all in that range. So let's see. Do I have another? There's another one called Corporate Records Service. If you get something from Corporate Records Service, same deal, not part of the government, not required to send them any money. Please do not do so. I appreciate, by the way, I appreciate my clients and friends sending me a copy of these scams that they receive. We keep a file on it and periodically send it out so people know what to look for. But these guys are smart. They change the look over time. They change their names. So I can't just tell you today, don't do business with Corporate Records Service, because next week they'll have a different name that is also deceptively government sounding. So I didn't do it in color. It's like a light green, a real like schoolhouse green. Remember those interior walls when we were kids? Maybe you guys are younger than I am, didn't have to live through that. Pea green looking thing. So they want it to look really official so they can separate you from $100. $100 at a time. Think of how many businesses there are in Florida. All they got to do is get a small percentage of those. And they're in high cotton, folks. They're making a lot of money. It's obviously enough people are falling for these scams that folks are staying in business. I don't consider it a legitimate business, but because they've got the qualifier in their materials that they are not a government agency, they managed to stay in business and have not been put out of business by the state. All right. So that is what you're going to get every time you participate in a closing of real property. Somebody's going to get a notice trying to scam you out of money for a copy of your deed. Every time you're in business or you form an entity and it's on file with the state, you're regularly, probably annually, going to get these kind of scammy letters from these companies. Now, let's turn to the one that's really big business. And I alluded to the beginning. As you know, in addition to the estate planning and the representing entrepreneurial small business owners, we have a title side of our firm, Rock Solid Law and Title, right? And so that means that we provide closing, title, and escrow services for real property transfers, both residential and commercial. This is where the money's at. All right, show me the money. I just watched it on a plane. I'd never watched that movie. That's pretty well done, I have to say. So they want you to show you their money. And here's how it happens. This is a cautionary tale that my amazing client was able to stop a scam of $1 million, right? Everybody, Austin Powers, $1 million. It was seriously over $1 million that we saved together because this client was on guard and educated. Here's what happens. They're out there looking for emails regarding title closings, real property transfers. So who do they target typically? Yes, title insurance companies, closing attorneys, but really particularly real estate agents. My friends in the real estate industry, I teach this all the time, are a huge target. Why? Are they trying to steal their money? No, they're trying to steal their clients' money. And here's what they do. They find a realtor. They manage to get into their email account. And once they are in there, they watch the emails that go by regarding a particular transaction. They watch the communication go back and forth. And at some point, they will enter the conversation. In one of the ones that we stopped, they had added an extra letter IJK, the letter I, in an email address, because our eyes read right over it. You don't scrutinize the email address when you're replying to someone that you've already been in conversation with, and nobody else does either. So these folks enter the conversation, and once they are in there, they know they've got a chance. So what they will do is monitor the closing until the last minute at the closing date, typically. they will interject and get in a conversation so that now they have taken the conversation away from the actual party or realtor. And at the 11th hour, an email comes in that says, oh, please wire the funds to this account. And the account, in my experience, can even be at the same bank that the actual client keeps their money. So if they can get the title company to wire out the sale proceeds, right, in many instances, hundreds of thousands or even over $1 million, and they can get those proceeds to hit an account over which they control, they then whisk that money offshore and it's gone forever, right? So if you are involved in a real estate transaction, I beg you, please confirm everything over the phone with a person whose voice you recognize. Never give out a full bank account. Give over an email, right? Give, say, the last 4 over the phone in a phone call that you initiate, okay? And this way we can avoid this kind of fraud happening. That's what happened with my client. She sent to me an email that she had received and said, this is very strange. Am I really supposed to now send the money to this address? Account, not address, to this account. And I said, oh my gosh, no, great job. So glad you were educated to keep an eye out for this kind of fraud. That's called phishing. They go phishing into email accounts until they get information sufficient to find an active transaction that they can interject themselves in. I see I have a question. Here come the reading glasses. Let me check that out. Good morning. Yes, there will be. What a great question. Yes, I will stay on for question and answer. And I'm winding down. So go ahead and put your question up now if you would like to do so. Type it into that same bar. And I will tell you, I've not updated this research, but in 2019, $221 million were lost to exactly the kind of criminals that I have just described. Exactly the criminals that I have just described. Someone that worked for the FBI said criminals are getting so sophisticated, it's getting harder and harder for victims to spot the red flags and tell real from fake. Email is still the common entry point, but frauds are also beginning on text messages. Be careful there too, folks. So you want to require a 2-factor authentication and verify requests in person or by phone. Another thing you want to never do is follow the link provided in a message. You want to go out and go into the website of the person or entity that you are transacting with, and therefore foil the fraudster. Okay. Yes, I will take questions now. I sincerely hope that everything that I have taught you about this morning will help you avoid having a fraud against you and those that you those people you know, love, and care about as well. This video will make its way to our rocksolidlaw.com/videos page. So if you know people who could benefit from sitting through these, 20 minutes, I would absolutely love for you to share it with them. Okay, here come the reading glasses. And Mario, very good. My company offers solutions to these challenges and cybersecurity and ransomware. I'd be happy to share with the group. I am very good for you to type that into the chat bar, which is, let's see if I can find it, about right there. Thank you for asking permission, Mario. I very much appreciate that. And I appreciate people that work in your space. This is a big issue for all of us. All right. Hi, John. Good morning. What do you think about title monitoring services? So I don't know what they charge, John, to do that over time. If it were de minimis, it might be worth doing. It is so easy to search title. If, for instance, I suspect that you have relationships with one or more professionals that you could ask to update title in the event that you thought there were suspicious activity or concern, or just, on a regular recurring basis, maybe annually or something like that, to make sure that nothing has been done. Because yes, I believe the nature of your question is wild deeds out there. There are situations where people have just recorded deeds where they had no right to do so, and then the property is sold to a third-party arm's length purchaser with no knowledge of the fraud. So very good. Is there one more? Oh, the chat is disabled. Well, thank you for telling me that, and I don't know how to enable it. So go ahead and put your information. Is everybody able to see the Q&A tab? Assuming so, put your information there. If not, I tell you what, anybody who has not had their question answered this morning is welcome to email us at questions. Pretty nifty, huh? Questions with an S at rocksolidlaw.com. And, there are often people that want to have a question answered without sharing it with the whole group. Happy to do that. Mario, if you will send that information to me, assuming you can't type it into the Q&A, then we'll be glad to share that information as well. Yes, as John correctly points out, the FIEN can be obtained on Sunbiz for entities, for people that are snooping around. Thankfully, most Social Security numbers are still fairly private, unless you've been subject to a different kind of fraud and phishing, right? Looks like I'm at the end of all of the Q&A. And Mario, I appreciate your pointing out that issue of the chat bar being disabled. I'm not sure how my team did that. I don't know how to do it myself, or I'd disable it right now. So guys, I'm gonna let the Commodores take us back out with Zoom. I unequivocally appreciate you guys giving me your time. I'm sorry I did have a difficulty starting, so I've run over just a little bit. I do respect your time. We will look forward to seeing you here for the next in our webinar series. Thanks, everybody. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your week here in this beautiful paradise that we call Northeast Florida. I'm John Miller, founding attorney, Rock Solid Law and Title. It's been a joy to share this information with you. Beware, there are scammers out there, and don't become a cautionary tale, or at least a victim. Take care. Bye-bye.